there, this is part 3 or part 2.1. I'm going to show you a bit about bark tanning fish skin leather. So I have just finished scraping one of those beautiful huge spring salmon sides, and I am left with a whole lot of waste. So I just wanted to start with this. So that's all the scales, and they have huge scales, and the flesh as well. And I actually keep it in a bag and throw it in my freezer. And at some point I bring back all of the fish waste to the ocean and honor the spirit of the salmon by returning it to the ocean. I've been taught by some of my Coast Salish teachers that when we do that, that honors the salmon people and ensures that they come back again and again and again. So unfortunately, it seems that our world doesn't really work that way so much anymore, and that could be why, one of the reasons why our salmon is struggling so much, our salmon populations. So I'm going to put that in a bag. I think whenever I work with anything from the natural world, I take the time to figure out ways to honor the spirit of the plant, the animal, the tree, because there's life in everything that that is here on this planet. So yeah, it's I think our responsibility when we work with these materials to figure out a way to honor them. So I'm going to put that in my freezer. And I have a beautifully scraped spring salmon skin, and it really does help to freeze them first before you scrape them. The flesh seems to come off a lot easier, so I would recommend that even overnight. Just fold it up when it's got the flesh on. I usually fold them in half and then in half again, and if you can, in half again. Stick them in a Ziploc bag and put them in the freezer, and then just defrost it, and away you go with the scraping. So last time I showed you egg and oil. This time I'm going to show you bark tanning, and you can go the route of finding some bark from alder trees, sumac, hemlock, fir, whatever you've got. My first time trying to bark tan on my own, I salvaged some dead alder bark, and I think I threw in every kind of bark I had. So I think I had some hemlock bark, and I made a tea with it. And then once it cooled, I put my fish skins in and let them steep for a while. It did work, although it was a lot of work. It was a lot of hours of boiling and a lot of work just cutting up the bark into little tiny pieces. So there is an easier solution. This is ground tannin or tannic acid from a store called Maiwa. They have all kinds of natural pigments there, and I'm in Vancouver, BC, and there are 2 stores here, so I'm lucky enough to be able to go and buy it. You can also use tea. I've used Chinese tea, and I've also played with coffee a little bit, not with great results, but that's because I didn't follow the golden rule. So one of the the golden rule is that when you put your raw skins into the first tanning solution, or the tanning tea, it has to be weak, because if you put it in when it's too strong, it seems, well, I call it shocking the skin, although that's not technically what it does, but basically the larger particles of the tannin fix to the outer fibers of the fish skin, and then it blocks the tannins from penetrating beyond into the inner layers. So what you end up with is a skin that is tanned on the outside and raw on the inside. So it might look beautifully tanned, but when you put it under water, or if you've sewn it into a garment and then you're out in the rain, it's just going to go soggy and limp, and it might even fall apart. So you really want to make sure that it's weak to start with, and then gradually increase the concentration of your bark tan solution. So one thing that I really like about this process is you can reuse old spent tanning solution. And recently I taught a class on bark tan salmon skin, and I ended up with, actually this is only a small amount of the leftover of the tanning solution. It's a little bit strong, I think, even. So you can see the color of it. It's quite opaque. Usually it should look like tea, like kind of a weak tea. I did put in a sockeye salmon skin yesterday, which is a lot smaller and thinner than a spring salmon, and already it looks and feels tanned. So I'm going to pull it out and show you. And this is how it looks right now. And I wish you could feel it. It actually feels like leather. It's thicker, it's tougher, and it has a beautiful color. My concern is that maybe I put it in a solution to start that is too strong. So one thing you can do, I hadn't actually planned to do this on here, but I'm just reaching for some scissors. What you can do is cut a little piece off to test and see. This is a really, really thin skin though, so it's hard to see. But in theory, you should be able to see whether the tannins have saturated the skin all the way to the middle or not. Sorry, penetrated the skin to the middle. It looks like it, but it's so thin that I can't tell. So I'm just going to take a risk and keep it in there anyways for another day or two. Usually it takes about a week to tan the sockeye salmon skin. They're a little bit thinner. And for the spring salmon, I think it's going to take longer, maybe 10 days or up to 2 weeks. You can leave them in for a few days too long, but you don't want to leave them in for way too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take some of this stronger solution, put some in a jar, and then add some water. So hang tight for a second. So I just added some cold water. It's still on the strong side, but I think it'll be okay. So I am definitely a folk tanner. I'm not a super precise measuring type of person, and I like to experiment. So I'm still learning. I don't think we can ever fully become masters at these kinds of skills. So I'm gonna drop that in. I've just rinsed the fish skin really well. Ooh, it takes up a lot of room. I'm gonna just pour off a little bit of the solution. Now, the tanning solution is going to do most of the work. However, it is a very good idea to agitate the skin or stir the skin quite often in the first hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours to make sure that it starts to tan evenly. Excuse me. And then every day, giving it a really good stir at least once a day. So this Maiwa bark tan solution is a mix of a bunch of different kinds of bark. I'm not actually sure what the exact makeup is. You can probably find it online. But yeah, I would mix that into some water until I get the strength that I want, and mix some salt in as well. You might find this a little bit weird, but I actually like to taste test my tanning solution to make sure that it's right. So tannin is bitter, and if there is a high concentration or high level of tannin, you will kind of get that pucker effect. It should also taste a little bit salty because I've added salt originally. I am going to taste this. And it's only mildly bitter, so that's good because this is the very first bath. I don't know how many of you are squirming in discomfort after watching me do that. I actually love the smell of the bark tan powder that Maiwa makes. There's something really comforting about it. So I'm gonna leave this. I'm gonna stir it up over the next hour or two, and don't just stir it with a spoon, but pull it out and massage it in there, refold it, because you don't want it to have the same crease lines, or else it's gonna have white marks on the fish skin, and it won't be tanned evenly. So that's it for now about bark tanning, and next time I will be pulling the fish skins out of the bark tan solution and the egg and oil, and then look at the next steps. Thanks for watching.